This full moon in Gemini at 13 degrees is in opposition with the great attractor at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. This is a very powerful connection with universal wisdom, particularly to support and help us to integrate fractals, parts of ourselves, into more of a whole unified energy. Because we are invited here to step more into flow. This Gemini full moon is very much pointing to what's not aligned in our lives. And I'm not speaking of what's aligned in the external world. It's more about the internal world. Welcome to New Light Living Podcast. I'm Ulrika Sullivan. I'm an intuitive spiritual life coach and a galactic astrologer. This video is a galactic astrology reading of the Gemini full moon at 13 degrees 4 minutes on December 4th, 2025. Welcome. What I do in these videos, I put an outer layer of fixed stars, celestial bodies, and galactic points to the traditional Western tropical astrology wheel. And that is to help us expand into the awareness of our multidimensional self and also connect with multidimensional energy at the collective level. I'm welcoming you to this video. In this video, you'll receive 3 energetic themes that I've pulled out from the full moon chart. And also at the end, you'll get 3 questions should you want to integrate this Gemini full moon energy some more. Are you curious about your own galactic alignments? Download my Galactic Alignments reference guide. There's a link in the pinned comment and description box below. This full moon in Gemini at 13 degrees is in opposition with the great attractor at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, where the sun is also. And this is a very powerful connection with universal wisdom, particularly to support and help us to integrate fractals, parts of ourselves, into more of a whole unified energy. And this is a milestone in this journey for all of us. And the opposition to the great attractor is also highlighting our need to go beyond our current perception of reality. Because we are invited here to step more into flow and also allow ourselves to be of a whole unified character. And we are invited to embody this wholeness, this oneness. And the great attractor is a hub for universal wisdom, particularly associated with holding space for integration. The ruler of this full moon is Mercury, and Mercury is now at 22 degrees of Scorpio, conjunct Beta Centauri Hadar at 24 degrees of Scorpio, but also in opposition with Perseus-Algol at 22 degrees of Taurus. This axis we have talked about a lot before, Beta Centauri in opposition with Perseus-Algol. And we'll talk more about Mercury's role here as the ruler at this Gemini full moon in energetic theme 2 coming up. This Gemini full moon is very much pointing to what's not aligned in our lives. And I'm not speaking of what's aligned in the external world. It's more about the internal world. We still have quite a few planets in retrograde. However, Mercury now as the ruler of this full moon is direct. There are significant messages coming through, and particularly Mercury highlighting the Beta Centauri Algol axis here is very much the process of detaching our ego, detaching our logical sense, if you will, and what it does to our sense of wholeness. The ego is working very hard to align with what we call mass consciousness. And often that brings in self-doubt, and often that brings in a very polarized view of our existence and reality. And how it can take expression in ourselves is that we sense this misalignment between what we feel and know is our truth on the inside and what we see in the outer reality. I don't know if you've ever said when somebody asks you how you are, "Oh, I'm okay," but you're not. And that is exactly the feeling that we have here at this Gemini full moon, that there is a need for alignment, a need for what I call inner transparency. And ultimately, authenticity is when we can feel the same on the inside and what is our truth with what we express and experience out in reality, in our outer world and our experience in the physical body. And this dynamic between the inner and the outer, inside ourselves and what we are expressing and feeling is our reality on the outside, is very much guarded by the ego, because the ego wants to keep us as a victim. And often that sense of victimhood is very much based on a sense of duality and separation. This Gemini full moon is very much highlighting this opportunity we now have to come more in alignment with our inner world and how we are showing up on the outside, in the outside world, and not feeling the difference, the distance between the inner and the outer as much. Because as we are growing our inner world more into a whole, Great Attractor is helping us to integrate our own truth within ourselves and growing that stronger and stronger and stronger. The sense of misalignment, that outer expression and desire to align with mass consciousness, cannot hold anymore. It has to be aligned with the inner truth, which is really the ultimate unique essence and soul essence that we are. And this Gemini full moon is very much about that integration, to come into a greater level of authenticity. And I call it inner transparency, because this is also what is required for the future, and to allow ourselves to be just who we are from inside to outside. And the Gemini full moon is not only supporting the integration within each individual, but also integration and holding space is also applicable to soul groups. At this time, at this Gemini full moon, it is likely that there are many new connections between souls that are happening that are part of the same soul group. And how that can take expression is that you may run into somebody that you feel you have known all your life and just struck up a conversation. And this is a sign that your soul recognition between the two of you is there. This is what's happening now, where soul groups are coming closer and closer into connection with each other and integration. And it feels like a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough moment where we can step into the sense of adventure and walking the path of alignment, which is a sense of harmony. This is a opportunity here at this Gemini full moon to let the drawbridge down and align our inner selves with our outer selves, if we call it that, to walk a path of alignment. And also at the soul group level, this is what's happening. And this is a beautiful invitation to have a sense of that this seeking that we often have is now turning into more of a flow. And often when we're not aligned with our true inner self, we have this sense of that there's something missing, or we have to seek something next to feel more aligned. And this Gemini full moon is supporting us in that process of inner alignment, inner transparency, and walking the path of alignment, both individually and in soul groups, because there is a bigger perspective, how we can live in more harmony and oneness with each other, but also at the soul level individually, to expand into a perspective that is a perspective of boundless flow. Before we take a look at the Gemini full moon chart, I'd like to share what the energetic themes are. The first theme is beyond the victimhood. And here we're going to take a look at the full moon and the important square with the Nodal Axis, and also dwarf planet MakeMake and Corvus-Algorab, the fixed star Algorab. The second theme is from seeking to flow. And here we're going to take a look at the ruler Mercury and the important square to Pegasus-Markab. And also we have Mars conjunct Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge, and also the opposition between Mars and Auriga Capella and Orion Bellatrix. The third theme is connect with your dreams. And here we're going to take a look at an important yod showing us guidance on how to connect deeper with our desires and dreams at this Gemini full moon. And here we also have the members only video that I am excited to dive deeper into this guidance that asteroid karma is giving us around this time. So let's dive into the Gemini full moon chart next. So here we have the Gemini full moon. And as you can see, the moon and the sun are in oppositions at every full moon. And the full moon here is in opposition with the great attractor at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. And we also have the ruler Mercury here at 22 degrees of Scorpio conjunct Beta Centauri in the Centaurus constellation. And Mercury is also in opposition with Perseus-Algol there up in Taurus at 22 degrees. So this is an important Gemini full moon with regards to the process that we are entering with integration. And what we also notice in this chart is that we still have Neptune, Chiron, Uranus, and Jupiter still in retrograde, while Mercury is now direct. And he is ready to rule this Gemini full moon for sure. I wanted to highlight the great attractor since the sun is highlighting the great attractor here at this full moon. And the great attractor at 14 degrees of Sagittarius is in the second decan of Sagittarius, which means that it's in the mental domain. The great attractor is associated with integration of fractals, of parts of our mental journey, if you call it that, into a more holistic perspective. So the great attractor is a hub of universal wisdom that we have access to, particularly at this Gemini full moon, to notice what is misaligned, what needs to come into more harmony. And depending on what house you have great attractor 14 degrees of Sagittarius in, it might give you some guidance on what area of your life is this integration taking place primarily. The great attractor is said to drive about 80 to 100 galaxies. So it's hard to describe the magnitude. We're talking about energy. In terms of magnitude, the great attractor is significantly larger in terms of its energetic power, if you will, than in terms of magnitude as compared to, for example, the galactic center at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. That is our black hole, a universal driver for universal wisdom of the Milky Way galaxy here. In terms of magnitude, this is a significant alignment pointing out the need for integration of our awareness of our soul journey to move away from energy of duality and victimhood, for example. Yes, how are you holding space for this integration within yourself and also for opening up for connections with other souls in your soul group at this Gemini full moon? Next, let's take a look at the first energetic theme that I called Beyond the Victimhood. Here we have the first energetic theme, and as I mentioned in the introduction, we have an important square between the full moon and the nodal axis, also at 13 degrees in Pisces and Virgo, respectively. This is an important grand cross that is meant to allow this new direction forward to be clearer as we go through this process of integration. The number 13 is also very much linked into the divine feminine. We are getting guidance on how to approach this grand cross energy. 4 squares can sometimes feel like it's going outside of our comfort zone, much more than what a T square sometimes is, that is 2 squares in an opposition. But here, in some way, it's a harmony inside the tension here. A grand cross that involves the nodal axis is also giving us direction for the future. So the north node here at 13 degrees of Pisces is still in conjunction, in orb, to be in a conjunction with Eridanus Archenar at 15 degrees of Pisces. This is the last full moon and new moon that the north node is in orb to be in conjunction with Eridanus Archenar. And if you recall, we've talked about Archenar quite a few times here in previous videos, but in summary, Archenar is associated with spiritual expansion, spiritual philosophy, and the fact that the north node has been conjunct Eridanus Archenar for a while here and now is ending that conjunction means that we are now in a period of time where we are transitioning from gaining more expansion, if you will, in terms of our spiritual journey into more embodiment of our spiritual journey. We also have another placement around 13 degrees, and that is asteroid Deianira. It's a asteroid also in conjunction, interestingly, with the dwarf planet MakeMake at this time at 12 and 13 degrees of Libra, conjunct Corvus-Algorab. Corvus-Algorab is also at 13 degrees of Libra. So this combination of energy between the full moon and MakeMake and Deianira there is more of a flow. The trine is more flow energy, while the sextile is also providing external support likely to us. And MakeMake is the higher expression of the ruler of this Gemini full moon, higher expression of Mercury, but also higher expression of Uranus. So we have a galactic support. MakeMake in many ways stands for this higher understanding, for example, of our soul's journey, using tools, ancient wisdom to understand it deeper in this lifetime. And Deianira is the victimhood type of asteroid that points out where we may feel this victimhood energy in association with ancient soul memories. And this is where we are asked to integrate this into a more whole energy at this time. And Corvus-Algorab is the messenger that comes with this clarity. We have talked about Corvus-Algorab in previous videos too, but this combination of energy has a strong message to it because it links into the ruler Mercury through MakeMake, but also that victimhood energy that we're trying to align. This is an important clarity and flow understanding to lean into at this Gemini full moon to come to higher understanding of that grand cross that the nodal axis is tossing at us with this square with the full moon. I also want to show you Deianira there through an image, which is associated with victimhood energy, and also MakeMake here with that higher ancient wisdom, but also the clarity and understanding of what that means in our life today. And also Algorab as the messenger here that brings a message of courage into this Gemini full moon to allow that sense of victimhood to be eased and softened to support our process around integrating that victimhood energy into more of a wholeness and flow energy at this time. So yes, the nodal axis here and its important square to the full moon is a statement. We are meant to work with this energy with the sight on the future. And what that means for you may want to look where the nodal axis is currently transiting in your own chart, but also where this full moon is falling in your chart, the Gemini Sagittarius axis. So this will give you some clues on this integration process that is ongoing here at this full moon. All right, let's take a look at the second energetic theme that is from seeking to flow, that I've called From Seeking to Flow. And here I'd like to start by pointing out the ruler Mercury here at 22 degrees of Scorpio conjunct Beta Centauri Hadar at 24 degrees of Scorpio. So what I noticed here is also, in addition to Mercury, we have Mars and Chiron at 22 degrees in their respective signs here. Mars in Sagittarius and Chiron in Aries. Mars is conjunct Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, in opposition also with Orion Bellatrix at 22 degrees of Gemini and Auriga Capella at 22 degrees of Gemini. And I should also mention that Mercury is also in opposition with Perseus-Algol there, up in Taurus at 22 degrees of Taurus. So what's going on with all these 22 degrees, master number 22? But before we explore these 22 numbers in the chart, I'd like to highlight that we do have this grand water trine still in effect at this Gemini full moon between Jupiter in retrograde at 24 degrees of Cancer, conjunct Canis Minor Procyon at 26 degrees of Cancer. And now we have Saturn direct at 25 degrees of Pisces, conjunct Pegasus-Markab at 23 degrees of Pisces, and also Mercury as the ruler of this Gemini full moon at 22 degrees, conjunct Beta Centauri, as we talked about. So this is an important grand water trine that is now fueled by both Mercury and Saturn in direct motion again, and this is a significant. And once Jupiter goes direct in March 2026, this grand water trine will not be in effect, obviously. But at the time when Jupiter comes back to 26 degrees of Cancer, Jupiter will be conjunct Venus at the time in June 2026. And this grand water trine is very much what drives also our desire to go deeper with our subconscious awareness around our soul journey and integrating those parts that we feel are misaligned between our inner world and the outer world. And particularly Saturn in this grand water trine now are bringing up the mental constructs. Pegasus-Markab is associated with our mental power here, and Jupiter and Saturn direct motion is really highlighting that. Even though Saturn is at 25 degrees, and you would think that would be the third decan, the spiritual realm, but it's the integration between the mental power and that Markab is pointing out, and also the spiritual inner self. So this is still a very potent and significant energy in the chart at this Gemini full moon. And in addition, this 22 degrees master numbers influence on the ruler here, Chiron in retrograde in Aries, and has a quincunx to the ruler Mercury, and also that opposition. Here we are talking about the detachment of the mental domain to the heart frequency, which really is speaking to your unconditional love, coming deeper with unconditional love. Because Mercury conjunct Beta Centauri Hadar now, that's the ultimate message that we are driving towards at this Gemini full moon, is to get deeper in connection with unconditional love within, and ultimately self-love. So let's now take a look at Mars. Mars is also at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, conjunct Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge there at 22 degrees of Sagittarius as well. So we have a very distinctive trine between Mars and Chiron in retrograde at this Gemini full moon that is also bringing in a sextile to Orion Bellatrix and Auriga Capella in Gemini there at 22 degrees. So this forms a supportive process for Chiron in retrograde to work with healing. Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge is the healer that is working on taming the Kundalini energy, and I'll have an image for you to connect with that in a minute here. And this energy, in opposition with Orion Bellatrix and Auriga Capella, Bellatrix is associated with energy of lack of direction, while in its higher expression is more of a inner flow. And Auriga Capella is interesting. We haven't mentioned much about Auriga Capella, but when I'm tuning into this Gemini full moon, Auriga Capella comes up. And Capella is the charioteer. Auriga Capella is associated with that desire to seek more knowledge, at the very systematic an organized way. And Capella is the charioteer, and the goat is associated with Capella as well. I have an image for you to tune into in a second here. But Capella is very much associated also with that desire to have a go, but also to trust the process and actually pause in this process of understanding the process of gaining knowledge. So we have archetypes here of seeking knowledge, but also healing. And with Chiron and retrograde influencing this pattern here through a trine and a sextile, it is very much, it may be that path we're on to transmute the energy of victimhood to a more of inner peace and inner flow. So here we have a Riga constellation, and I've highlighted Capella there as the fixed star on the sky map. And also Capella here on an image is the center of the goat here. The center of the goat here in the arms of the charioteer. And here we also have on the sky map, Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge pointed out, but also you can see on the image here, Ophiuchus is trying to tame that Kundalini, the snake. And inner healing is very much associated with coming into contact with that life force within and directing it in a purposeful way. So Mars conjunct Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge here is activating this process of directing our energy, our life force towards the future in a more meaningful way that is more whole. So yes, this seeking to flow is a transmutation of energy that is ongoing at this Gemini full moon. And part of it is for us to come deeper into the understanding of how we are directing our life force and how we can also more clarity around this urge to seek more knowledge versus aligning with inner peace and inner flow. And since the number 22 is very prominent in this chart, in key placements, we also have the call for mastery of some sort here, the master number 22. So how can you, in this process during Gemini full moon, become more self-directed and leaning on, aligning with your inner flow over that victimhood energy that is also pointed out to us? All right, let's dive into the energetic theme 3. Connect with your dreams next. So here we have the third energetic theme, connecting with your dreams. And I wanted to start off this theme with pointing out the minor grand trine that we have had in effect pretty much since June 2025. And that is going to end in terms of being an orb. And I'm using a 3-degree orb here. At this Gemini full moon, we still have the minor grand trine between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and Pleiades, Pegasus sheet, and Aquila Altair, respectively. But 2 days after this Gemini full moon, the minor grand trine is now no longer going to be considered in orb for alignment. This is the last time in about 6 months that we are going to have this minor grand trine supporting the evolution that we're in. This minor grand trine will come together again starting early June 2026. This is the last couple of days of this minor grand trine, a 3-degree orb. And we have talked about this minor grand trine video, so I won't go over the details of it. But what we can notice and remember too is that this minor grand trine is supporting 2 yods. Particularly, we yod between Neptune and Pluto, Aquila Altair and Pegasus sheet here, pointing to the 0 degree of Virgo point and Leo Regulus at 0 degree of Virgo on July 6th, and particularly also highlighting asteroid Karma that was passing this 0 degree of Virgo point at the time. At this Gemini full moon, we have asteroid Karma now at 29 degrees 55 minutes of Libra. And that is also in alignment with that second yod that can be projected from this minor grand trine. I wanted to highlight and talk a little bit about that because asteroid Karma is giving us guidance around that process of getting further awareness of our soul contract, but also critical milestones that we may go through that asteroid karma is highlighting for us. And this Gemini full moon, asteroid karma, is pointing out this yod formation now at 29 degrees of Libra conjunct Shapley Attractor at 2 degrees of Scorpio. This is an important alignment that is also highlighting our awareness around our soul contract and the karmic energy that we have opportunity to transmute in this life. And I'm excited to dive deeper into the members only video. We are going on a little journey to connect with our dreams, because the message that this yod is giving us is that we are working with divine timing to unlock ancient wisdom, because asteroid Hopi here up is conjunct in retrograde at 29 degrees of Pisces. And this is an important alignment of asteroid Hopi, highlighting that it is really ancient wisdom that we're connecting with, also to support, help transmute parts of our soul contract that has to do with unlocking ancient wisdom within ourselves. So think about what you have been learning between July 6th this year to now, because asteroid karma has been traveling between 0 degree of Virgo to 29 degrees of Libra of about 6 months here. So this is an important highlight by asteroid karma. And the link into our desires and dreams, we're now in a position where the activation here is happening. And it's important at this Gemini full moon to go deeper with what we truly desire and what our dreams for our next direction on our path is. So I can't wait to guide you through this connection with your dreams in the members only video. And here we have asteroid karma, asteroid Hopi, and the Shapley Attractor also highlighted, because the Shapley Attractor is such a huge force in our universe. So anytime a celestial body or a planet is in conjunction with the Shapley Attractor, we know that there is going to be a surge of energy with that focus that provides. So right now, it's the focus on the asteroid karma and what that asteroid is representing on our soul journey. And asteroid Hopi is a representative of ancient wisdom that we are now due to connect with, and conjunct Neptune. It is through our spiritual body that we're connecting, that we are reconnecting and remembering wisdom that we came here with. So yes, how are you connecting with your desires and dreams in a futuristic perspective? In what direction would you like to walk next? A great opportunity to get in clearer contact with your desires and dreams at this time, early December 2025. Because next time around at the new moon in Sagittarius on December 19th, it's a new whole page starting, and we'll talk more about that in the next video. Are you curious about your own galactic alignments? Download my Galactic Alignments reference guide. There is a link in the pinned comment and description box below. I also want to invite you to the 2026 Galactic Astrology program, where I go over the major themes of the entire year of 2026. And we are tapping back into those themes as we go all over next year. So if you want a heads up or dive deeper into the overarching themes of 2026 from a galactic astrology perspective, join me in the Galactic Astrology program. I put a link in the pinned comment and the description box below as well, should you want to join us. And for Black Friday, I will have a 20% coupon off of this program, and that will be offered to those who are subscribed to my email list. So go download the Galactic Alignments reference guide and get on my email list. You'll be receiving this offer for 20% off the 2026 Galactic Astrology program. And that is for Black Friday only, November 28th, 2025. So I can't wait to see you inside the program. All right, are you ready for the questions? Let's go through the questions I have for you. The first question is about the full moon and that grand cross, the squares to the nodal axis. And the question is, what is it on your path forward that you're doubting here in and around the Gemini full moon? And how can you transmute that energy to a bigger perspective? What are you doubting is part of your path forward, and how can you see it in a bigger perspective? The second question is that Mars conjunct Ophiuchus-Rasalhauge in opposition with Orion Bellatrix and Auriga Capella. And that axis is very important. What part of your path forward feels like you need to control it or put some systematic organization into it? And how can you loosen the grip and let it flow? And this might be very difficult, but it speaks to this victimhood, duality energy versus the aligning yourself with more harmony and flow. So sometimes it helps to just kind of think about it, how can I see it more from a harmony and flow perspective? And what can I do to allow myself to feel that flow and harmony? And the third question is about asteroid karma there in Yod with Uranus in retrograde conjunct Pleiades and Neptune in retrograde conjunct asteroid Hopi conjunct Pegasus sheet there. And that powerful Yod with karma conjunct Shapley Attractor. And the question is, how are you connecting deeper with your desires and dreams at this Gemini full moon? And it may only be that you are extra awareness, that you're bringing yourself a couple of extra minutes of awareness around that, is because it is an opportune time to go deeper with that energy at this Gemini full moon to help integrate it to your whole being, your inner truth. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening to New Light Living Podcast and this show. I am Ulrika Sullivan. I'm an intuitive spiritual life coach and a galactic astrologer. You can find me on ulrikasullivan.com. And I can't wait to see you inside the 2026 program. And also, I can't wait to share with you the Sagittarius new moon video. There's a lot to talk about in that next video. And happy Thanksgiving for those who are celebrating Thanksgiving. And look for that 20% coupon to apply to the 2026 program with me. Until then, see you. Take care. Bye-bye.